Opinions are subjective, but they're very important in unfolding the speaker's or writer's character. Analysts all over the world have their own interpretations of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, some of which are conflicting. Welcome back to Military Future. Today, we'll detail how Russia failed against Ukraine in this long-stretch series of warfare. Now let's explain the pivotal points that slowly depressed Russia with extraordinary losses one by one. Number 1. Since World War II, the importance of air power has grown immensely to the point that modern wars are mostly aerial. Whoever has the better aerial wins in most cases. The reason for the failures of Russian aerial operations in the first phase of the ongoing war was poor strategy. We need to talk about the Gulf War to understand how Russia, having some of the world's most advanced weapons, failed to plan a good aerial strategy. During the invasion of Iraq, launching aerial operations and resisting counterattacks was a top priority. The first aerial campaigns were aimed at aerial attack prohibiting agents, and the coalition successfully executed this attempt. The Desert Storm operation also led Iraq's military to fail quantitatively. Coalition teams dropped 88,500 tons of bombs on targets, 254 aircraft were struck on the ground, and 36 were destroyed in aerial combat. The operation lasted 5 weeks and completely obliterated Iraqi equipment and troops by the end of it. Looking at the Russian example in Ukraine, the skies were not secured on the first day. The Russian army seemed to undervalue Ukraine's air defenses, or they thought they could win without gaining aerial control. Russia heavily deployed combat aircraft on the eastern, northern, and southern Ukrainian borders. The lack of planning was also evident in the battle at Antonov Airport, a strategically significant point in Kyiv's outskirts. On February 24th, Russian paratroopers tried to gain control of the airport. They succeeded initially, but replacements for the planes had to be brought in because of aircraft loss en route to the airport. These aircraft, including an AN-26, were carrying troops and supplies. The SAED, suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses, operations were underperforming and even failing in certain instances. Russia also lost 9 Mi-8 transport helicopters. The list of losses includes a 220mm BM-27 Uragan, 5 KAM AZ-6350 8x8 artillery tractors, 5 MTLB carrying Zu-33 AA guns, 3 unidentified armored fighting vehicles, and many more. The shameful thing is that these were stuck and damaged by a single Ukrainian drone in use, the Bayraktar TB2, provided by Turkey via an agreement. Number 4. The reason for Russian aerial failures lie in the shortage of smart munitions. This lack of advanced aerial defense made it non-committal, as it couldn't expect good results. The munition shortage and lack of trained pilots for their operation seemed to be a persistent problem for Russia. In Russia's 2015 intervention, a severely restricted use of smart munition was also seen. In the war with Ukraine, it had close to 300 aircraft stationed in bases, but only 80 were modern. Even then, Russian aerial assets could be used as assets against Ukraine. But the reason for doubling its aerial capabilities were unclear. The best guess could be that Russia was conflicted between defending its own airspace and attacking Ukraine, and it chose defense over the attack. There were several careless mistakes from Russia's side as well. Cargo planes often flew with their transponders turned on and were immediately detected and taken down by Ukraine's radar systems. To be honest, the Russian aerial failure showed a lack of training, and they overestimated their capabilities and were incompetent. Number 5. The next big reason for Russia's failure was unsound logistics. Russia failed to provide reinforcements and ammunition whenever required by its troops in Ukraine. This was the main cause for not securing any quick wins. Russia is a vast country, so it heavily relies on its domestic railway network. They are efficient, but in this case, domestic networks were not enough to translate into logistic networks for the war. Russia paid much attention to railways and very little to moving troops via trucks. Their accounts for logistics inadequacies in the battle with Ukraine, relying on railways as the primary supply source, meant lengthening the arrival of supplies, making the process more complicated. Before we continue with this video, we'd like to ask you your views on Russia's railway network tactic. We'll tell you our opinion in a bit. Do you think it has some positives? Or should have Russia never used this strategy? Let us know in the comments below. Also like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and stay up to date. Back to the video. Now, using railways to transport weaponry and other war supplies isn't unheard of, but it takes some time to establish a robust ground railway network. Russia didn't take or possibly have the time to do that. Number 6. Let's dive deeper into why overemphasized railway supply networks and neglected truck networks took down Russia. In the beginning, Russia had a shortage of trucks, even for facilitating logistics within occupied Russia. Russia had deployed 10 brigades, each comprising of 400 trucks. Such chains function in a pyramid-like pattern. One truck is dependent on another, which in turn depends on several others, making a transport period, so to speak. The lack of trucks wasn't the only logistics issue Russia faced in the war. There were also a lack of trained drivers and defending personnel for supply lines. Each supply truck needs to be supported by a network of 12 others, but in this example, the number of trucks available for supporting a single one was nearly half the recommended value. Number 7. Remember when we talked about how the US disrupted the Iraqi communication network to weaken them further? Let's examine that in more detail. Several instances point to a lack of smooth communication channels and possible misdirection in Russia's military. Many testimonies, which are not reliable, revealed widespread use of cheap walkie-talkies, and the orders were being passed on through pen and paper mode. The major reflection of this lies in the death of Russian general Vitaly Gerasimov. Some evidence suggested that his death was due to the revealing encrypted interception. War propaganda is often difficult to verify. Some also suggest that Vitaly is still alive. But regardless, it's undeniable that Russians could have done a better job at managing war communication channels at every level. Number 8. The 90th Guards Tank Division of Russia includes 3 tank regiments. The unit contains the T-72A tanks, and the latest version of this series is the T-72B3 tanks, which were out in 2013. These tanks can communicate using digital encryption, but the system required to facilitate wasn't present with Russia in this war. Hence, despite having the most advanced equipment, they were only as good as the old ones, but ended up costing Russia more. All these moves by Russia can be termed suicidal without exaggeration. Russian troops rarely communicated using encryption. Most of their message were directly available to enemy troops. This sank an already dejected Russia even further in this war. Do you like our analysis of the Russian strategic failures in the war against Ukraine? If yes, then give us a like and stay tuned for more such videos on this channel. Make sure to check our other videos on our channel. That's all for today. We'll meet you with fresh content in the next one.